Install the best version of you.
All right, guys. Well, thank you very much for attending my presentation today. And thank you to the organizers of IC Fest for putting on a really epic event yesterday and today. As introduced, my name is Sami Hamid, and I am the co-founder and the VR producer at Glitch Studios, which is an immersive marketing studio building VR experiences within the enterprise, sales, and marketing sectors. Over the next 20 minutes or 18, depending on how much time I get with you guys, I'm going to be giving a snapshot of the VR enterprise solutions sector, looking at some of the strengths, the weaknesses, and then drilling down a little bit into what we've done within a sales solution for a client of ours in the heavy industries. So just very briefly, with offices in Oslo and Istanbul, Glitch, as I've mentioned, is an immersive marketing studio focusing on building out immersive experiences using AR and VR for both the museum sectors and also the heavy industries across Europe. We started as an indie team many, many moons ago on the Oculus Development Kit 1, so a very old piece of kit, and then really grew each year to now a 15-person company across 2 offices, and we continue to grow with the industry moving forward. So, for anyone who's been following the VR industry news, or maybe there are a few figureheads here in the VR industry, it has been a little bit of a roller coaster ride over the last few years. Maybe not at the same highs and lows as the crypto market, but nonetheless, a very mixed bag of reception and uptake alike from both the consumer and the enterprise side. As Jeremy mentioned, in terms of Facebook buying Oculus in 2014, we saw VR, rather than being left alone in the shadows in stealth mode to really mature as it needed to, it was kind of pushed out into the consumer spotlight with its first headset in 2016. And with that, the floodgates opened to a whole bunch of varying quality hardware and headsets. With that, we saw a bit of a gold rush by developers, entrepreneurs, startups, indie teams to really put their stake in the VR market within one particular specialization or another. However, the consumer uptake was far lower than expected, and apart from some interesting pilots in the enterprise area, we haven't really seen mass adoption on the enterprise side either. The hype train in VR, and there definitely has been one, kind of came to a bit of a halt over 2018. And since that point, we've seen a lot of players back off the market. Quite a few players, both big and small, have either rebranded, restructured. Sadly, some have gone bust or put their head in the ground. Big players such as Samsung have actually walked off the stage completely. So the market has had quite a difficult growth over the last few years. However, with a new decade on the horizon and several years of critical growth under its belt, virtual reality is seeing a more consolidated, matured, and realistic approach to both consumer and enterprise solutions from this year moving forward. And of course, this year has been the release of several new pieces of hardware from the Oculus Rift S, the Oculus Quest, and also the Valve Index, which is coming out later. All of them with better graphics, better ergonomics, less cables, and of course a completely wireless solution with the Oculus Quest. In my opinion, this is generation 1 of virtual reality. Everything that became before that has been very glitchy, has been very hacky. The number of phone calls I've got from my clients saying, my Oculus isn't working, I've got a black screen, I can't get the cable in. I've been more of an Oculus tech support than I have been a producer. So really we are very much at ground zero now in terms of consumer grade, more or less consumer grade virtual reality. And this has gone hand in hand with a better understanding by developers into how to build good virtual reality experiences. And in particular, now focusing on the enterprise side, that's been an understanding also as to where VR is adding value for enterprise solutions. And Jeremy touched upon some of those examples, and I'll jump into a few more. But that process has come through experimentation. There's been a lot of mud throwing onto the VR wall and seeing what sticks, and Glitch has been very much part of that process. We began many years ago by basically building out solutions for partners and for our clients and seeing what stuck and what didn't. Most of the times, we crashed and burned, I'm not going to lie. We will be throwing these things out towards our customers and our customers' customers and seeing what would stick and what wouldn't. We finally hit upon an idea of building out an experience within the heavy industries. What are the heavy industries? Well, they include telecom, data center, marine and offshore, oil, these kind of industries. And we thought, well, what do they struggle with, generally speaking? Basically, they have a tendency to struggle with presenting their products, presenting their services. Why? They tend to be very large, very complex, or very holistic. So many products coming together to form a single solution. They've relied very heavily on visualization in the past, usually digital visualization, and data centers, of course, the building itself is the product. So virtual reality lends itself very, very well to the heavy industries because, of course, it's a very small leap of faith for them moving towards a better form of visualizing what they're actually doing. So we planned out a solution where we would allow our prospective customers of our clients to basically explore, customize, interact with a fully rented data center. So at the end of the day, they would have a product that they were looking for. Now, we pitched this back in 2016 to a very large multinational telecom data center client. And to be very honest, it had a very difficult birth. This is back in the day when VR was still a little bit apprehensive about signing off. We were bounced around multiple departments, bounced around quite a few decision makers within that organization. But of course, that helped mature the idea in our heads as well. And finally, we ended up all the way at board level, where they were basically not so receptive. At first, they said, nah, this is a gimmick. VR is a gimmick. It's a passing fad. It's something that's not going to last. It's going to add no actual value to our organization. After much toing and froing, quite a few prototypes were produced, and finally they signed off on an actual experience. And that experience ended up being a virtual data center, allowing users to explore that space, interact with those products, install those products, take those products away, understand how those products come together to form a solution that they would need. And then once they'd done that, that data was then sent out to the sales reps of our client. Now, the marketing department absolutely loved it. They would roll this thing out at all their events around the world. We were a little bit of a VR celebrity going from Singapore to MENA, all the way across Europe to the US, because they saw it as a crowd magnet, a customer pleaser, a real booth babe, so to speak. And it was super popular. But how much added value it was giving our clients and how this could even be defined as an enterprise solution, big question mark there. However, as the solution started to sink deeper and deeper into the fabric of the organization, we started to get phone calls from departments and individuals that we'd never heard from before. And they were asking for tweaks and changes to this solution, which was really starting to go way beyond the scope of what we had first planned. One in particular was the UK sales department, who were basically throwing the VR headset into a carry-on case, rolling it straight into client sales meetings at their offices and using it as a sales tool. Now, this quickly spread across this multinational into other offices. There were actually 14 at the end that had these VR kits that were going straight into these sales meetings. And before we knew it, we were getting phone calls from our clients' clients saying, we've tried the VR solution, we love it, it's a very easy way for us to understand how we can get sign-off at our board level. Please, can we purchase it? So we sat down and said, okay, how much added value can we give this organization? And what does added value even look like in the context of a virtual reality-powered enterprise solution? Now, to help us answer that question, let's briefly, I can see that clock ticking down very fast, let's briefly look at what that perception was from our client in regards to virtual reality as a solution for their needs. One was gimmick. At first, they didn't get it at all. It was going to add no value to any aspect of the organization. Thankfully, we quickly pushed straight through into the novelty factor. Now, what is that? It was cool, it was edgy, it was fresh, it was aligned with technology, it was a fantastic marketing activation tool. But how much added value it was giving them? Big question mark. A lot of virtual reality that are labeling themselves as enterprise solutions is very much in this category. Even those that are not even marketing related, the pilots are still kind of in that novelty area. How do you move towards real added value? Now, for us, this happened organically. This was definitely driven by the client. They started to use it in a context that they were seeing that using it versus not using it was, of course, bringing them some tangible added value. And within a sales context, marketing is fluffy, it's gray. Sales is binary, it's black and white. You either sell or you don't. And these individuals was really seeing the added value for them on a very binary level. So where can we go from here? Where can we really push this experience or any enterprise solutions? Well, critical. What does that even mean? It means a solution that would be very tightly embedded into an organization, highly aligned to a specific goal or outcome for that organization with a very high frequency of use. Now, interestingly, as we see the perception of a VR-powered enterprise solution evolve through here, we also see the perception of the technology evolve. And what I mean by that is in the gimmick novelty area, it's all about the tech. It's the headset. It's how cool and how edgy and fresh this is. As you start moving towards a valuable and real critical level of added value, you see the technology taking a step back and the solution taking a step forward. And that's quite important here. So how do we move to critical levels of added value? What's missing in the VR industry, enterprise, or consumer that's going to help push us there? Jeremy hinted on a few in his previous slides, and I'm going to reiterate them now. First is ease of use. Virtual reality is without a doubt high friction. We are lazy by nature. Humans want life served up on a plate. And VR is a high friction point, whereas, say, smartphones are quite low friction point. How do we help balance the books there? How do we really bring those two together? Well, that's a two-sided coin. One, hardware has to continue to improve. Right now, the wires, the fact that it's still quite ergonomically heavy, it's still very much early days, has to see improvements. The other side is from the developers like Glitch. They need to have a better understanding of how to develop user experiences, user flows, user interfaces as well. And the hardware and the software will, of course, come together to bring down that friction point and make the ease of use very, very high. Next is return of investment. In an enterprise solution, if it is not A, increasing revenue generation, or B, decreasing costs, it is dead on arrival. Decision makers will need to understand when they're making an investment, in particular within technology, they're going to draw a line between their investment and that return. That could take place in the form of quicker training cycles, so higher efficiency in training, quicker design cycles, again, saving costs, or increasing sales through more clients going from potential to closed. End of the day, money talks in VR definitely has to start learning that language. Next is connectivity. This thing is falling off my face. Here we go. Next is connectivity. Basically, in a world that is about to be embracing the 5G revolution over the next 5 years, and with also over the next 5 years, and with also a lot of IoT coming very, very soon, VR enterprise solutions need to be a part of that. That could take place from a social side, so it could be multi-users connecting to your clients remotely, or potentially connecting internally, or not even multi-user at all. It could be through data aggregation in the cloud, which is then put together for analysis purposes. And finally, it's industry champions. So it doesn't all rely on the developers and the hardware producers. It's also about industry champions, knights in shining armor, who are understanding how VR is going to be disrupting their industries in the coming years, signing off on those pilot programs and seeing those pilot programs really get pushed out into full production. So very briefly now, because my time is ticking down, This all comes together to form an ecosystem, an enterprise ecosystem. And DigiCapital a month before, April 2019, put together an excellent report looking at what the VR, AR, and MR immersive markets are looking like within enterprise solutions. Focusing very specifically on VR for a moment, we can see here what's looking good and where we need a little bit more of a push. And we've already identified some of those: leaders, investment, install base, connectivity, critical apps, and frequency of use. These will all come together to form an ecosystem where if your business is not plugging in, you will be missing out. And where are we seeing those spearheads so far in enterprise solutions powered by VR? Well, 3 areas in particular, again echoing some of the points that Jeremy has made: training and education, design and production, and sales and marketing. So training, VR is a very powerful tool for immersing the user in a particular experience and making that experience and the information from that experience very personal, resonating with that individual, allowing them to really embrace it. And the learning retention rate is far higher. Walmart last year rolled out 17,000 headsets across their various stores in the US and have seen some very good results using VR for training. Design and production. If you are a designer of a 3D space or a 3D model, doing that on a flat screen monitor versus doing it in a 3D world such as VR is, of course, far less effective. Bell Helicopters worked with HTC Vive recently to design a helicopter in a 6-month period, where the industry standard is usually 5 years. So not only was that a cost saver, but it was a quicker go-to market product for them, meaning more revenue generation. And then for me, of course, close to my heart is sales and marketing. So as we've touched upon, it's a very powerful tool in terms of bringing individuals closer to that brand, connecting to that brand story. But more importantly, it allows that user to get over the threshold and the barrier of potentially not understanding products within industries that have struggled to communicate those messages in the past. And those can include home furnishing, tourism and travel, real estate, architecture that we were talking about earlier today, and of course the heavy industries in general. So here you can see a picture of one of my clients in blue with one of his customers in pink in a pub in London. He cracked open the VR case in a sales meeting, and that customer closed for several $1 million worth of equipment. So definitely proof in the pudding there. So where are we going with our VR solutions? Well, very briefly, we're looking at multi-user connectivity. We're looking at bringing down that threshold of ease of use using wireless solutions. And we're also looking at user aggregation of data in the clouds. And final slide. So really, where is the enterprise ecosystem for VR going? I think it's too early to tell. I think, as I said, the 5G revolution will be a big player, along with a better understanding by developers to develop these solutions, as well as industry champions really making sure these get pushed out into pilot programs. So really it's a case of working together to build that ecosystem one brick at a time. So thank you very much.